Lady Gaga.
I still remember my first time ever being exposed to Lady Gaga. It was sometime either in 2008 or 9, and I had been chilling at home after a long day in the 6th grade, otherwise known as hell, and I was chilling in the living room, minding my own business. There was a show playing in the background. I wasn't paying attention to it. I was just waiting for it to end. And then at some point, right after it did, there wasn't the usual commercial break that would come on. Instead, the channel inserted like a promo for a song, and I only just began to hear the song playing, and I remember it like perked my ears up because it sounded different. Like it sounded like a dance pop song, but something about its electronic production also sounded a bit sad, and it gave me an impression I hadn't heard in a minute, or before. I was like 11 or 10. So yeah. So I look up, and what do I see but an image of like cover art for Just Dance by Lady Gaga, and then there's like text on the bottom that says, hey, go listen to this single or something like that. And I'm pretty sure that song had played in the TV episode. I don't remember what channel, what show, anything like that. But I swear it happened, and I've scoured online for it, and I can't remember, and I don't think I'll ever find it. But that was my first ever exposure to Lady Gaga, and that was a time, that was like the Lady Officer song by Lil Wayne, like that era of music. It was Thinking of You by Katy Perry, that era. A little bit before like Cobra Starship and all that was coming out, before Nicki had the blow up. Like it was just, it was quite a time in music. Little did I know, Gaga was just beginning to sneak her way in, right? And it wouldn't be for a while, that maybe another year, that Just Dance would blow up huge, and I would remember, oh, that's that one song. Yeah, speaking of blowing up, that song definitely blew up, as well as the other singles from the Fame. I remember being very, very irritated at how pervasive Gaga's first few singles were. She was absolutely everywhere. I remember even being at school and telling kids that I didn't like her, that I didn't get it. I didn't know why she was getting so much hype. The songs that were blowing up weren't good to me. Like, I just didn't get it. So finally, one day, I caved, and I decided to go to the public library because that's where I spent a lot of my time after school. I went and checked out the Fame, the album, and decided to go home with it and give it a listen on my portable CD player that was my constant companion before I had devices or like MP3 players. The CD player, that was my best friend. And I was on the toilet when I hit play on her album for the first time ever, and I think I may have still been on the toilet when I finished it. I'm not really sure, but I do remember I was stunned and speechless just for a long time on that toilet at how this pop music gold had been sitting right under my nose this entire time. The other surprise was that it wasn't just Paparazzi, Love Game, Just Dance, or Poker Face that I thought I knew, The Fame, the title track, had actually been
used in a promotional TV spot for Cycle 12 of America's Next Top Model,
which I did watch live on the CW as it aired, right? And I remember loving it when that opening came on, because the song that was playing, I thought it was just like an original song that they like made up for the show, right? Kind of like third party royalty free type stuff. But no, it wasn't that. It was a Gaga song, right? And it was just this very poppy, cunty sounding Rich Girl by Gwen Stefani type vibe. And then when I came across it on the album, I was like, oh. And then not to mention just the other deep cuts on the album that were so good. My favorites being, of course, The Fame. Summer Boy, which I find to be one of her most underrated songs ever. That song is so good, so fun. And then Boys, 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 which was another one that I think needs to get a lot more lovin'. But anyway, From then on, I was hooked. I was a certified little monster. I remember watching her tease the Born This Way lyrics after her VMA win. I remember hearing Judas for the first time on the radio while my mom was driving. I remember the hype that the Born This Way music video dropped with. I remember the constant Madonna comparisons. I remember the crazy outfits. It was a time. Her blow up was a time. I remember the lead up to Art Pop, all the rumors and leaks, specifically Burqa, which later became Aura, and my favorite leak that is also one of my favorite songs on the Art Pop album was also Venus. I remember walking around my neighborhood looking for Wi-Fi hotspots with my iPod Touch that I had by then, just to be able to get on a sketchy website and download the MP3 to my downloader app. It was a whole time. And I remember Applause when that single came out, also competing with Roar by Katy Perry, because that had just come out. And I remember them fighting it out on the charts for Best New Single and being just so annoyed that Katy Perry was stealing from Applause's thunder. I just had this feeling that Roar would outsell and outchart Applause. That song, Roar, was the sort of anthemic, uplifting, empowering girl boss pop song that was really dominating in that era. Applause did do well, mind you, but I think it was the only big hit she had that era, and even some of her biggest fans were a bit less than impressed by what they got once the Art Pop album did come out. This era, this time period, the Born This Way and Art Pop eras, saw Gaga going through tumultuous times. Within the media, collab controversy, her hip injury, and then also team issues that she was having behind the scenes. And I do think this was the beginning of a lot for her. I think she reached a point where she was giving so much and feeling like it wasn't working for her, despite putting her pussy into it. I think that she then decided to take a look at her artistry, at her identity as an artist, and it was then that she maybe decided she'd take her career in whatever direction she felt good and true to her, tuning out, or maybe even a little bit tuning in into that noise, the voices, the darkness, turning inward, making something of it maybe. But it was a reflective period, it feels like. I remember later on the 5'2" and Joanne eras, we saw a Gaga a little bit different than we'd seen or heard her before. Her spirit just felt dimmer, a little more heavy. And I think, Art Pop had a big effect on her. And then Joanne was, her further doing her. And even though there was no big hit from Joanne, I think it did give us, further tastes of her next musical steps. What came after Joanne was the Cheek to Cheek stuff, all of that. And then A Star Is Born, which was massive. Once A Star Is Born blew up, Gaga's voice, her acting, and her penmanship, or in short, her talent, were all once again put in the forefront and put into focus. Her talent, removed from the antics, from the chaos and the publicity, was finally being seen and appreciated. This was also after the very rehabilitating Sound of Music medley that Gaga did at the Oscars, which extra opened up those, hey, that crazy Gaga chick, she's got talent, huh? Conversations at the water cooler / dining table. And golly gee, do I love looking back and seeing how Gaga took us through her artistic journey, laying the groundwork of her legacy. Maybe at the time we didn't get Art Pop. Maybe at the time we didn't get Joanne. Maybe at the time we didn't get why she chose to do Cheek to Cheek with Tony Bennett. But her legacy of being a multi-genre, multi-shape and sound shifting singer-songwriter who we saw grow over time and become one of the biggest pop stars in the world, stamping her disco stick straight into pop music history. I love looking back and seeing what we thought were un-Gaga moments and just seeing that they were different feathers than we expected in the multicolored, multi-textured coat that is Lady Gaga as an artist, as a person. And then ever since, she seems to be doing great artistically. She dropped a well-respected and well-received album during the COVID era, Chromatica, which is a shame that it did come out around then because that could have been a whole bigger chapter in and of itself. But Regardless, Post-Chromatica, Gaga released another album with Tony Bennett. She starred in House of Gucci. She recorded a song for Top Gun Maverick, and she secured her next film role in Joker, Folie à Deux. So what about new music, though? It's been 4 years since Chromatica came out, which is unfathomable. Good news is that after opening for the 2024 Summer Olympics, Gaga had been staying in Paris, which apparently was a very lovely visit for her, because on Sunday, July 28th, 2024, Gaga put out an Instagram story that said, "I'm so deeply touched by my French fans this week outside the hotel. I'm gonna come out and say goodbye tonight with a few seconds of hashtag LG7. And that night, she gave us this.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
Now, this lit me up, let me tell you. She had been teasing images from the studio for a while on Insta in previous months, and those images were very much giving a rock-leaning vibe, which I have to admit did scare me a little bit. Just that it scared me it might be a bit of a grower instead of a shower, kind of like the Joanne era was, right? Or maybe that it could be rock inspired by The Rock on A Star Is Born, which is a production style that I could get behind given enough time, but my heart always yearns for a more dark electronic Gaga, you know? And these snippets definitely reignited a flame within me that had burnt very brightly during the era of Born This Way and art pop, giving me dark, industrial, guitar-laden, electronic, grungy dance music. And it's also an interesting contrast to the very bubbly, poppy sound going up right now. At this point, after all of the darkness and the struggle, both seen and unseen, I think we're in an optimistically interesting spot with Gaga. She has a couple of years of a Vegas residency under her belt, the goodwill of the music and film industry at her back. She has a name in the cosmetics and skincare world, and her fans, both old and new, are always ravenous for more Gaga. It must be so gratifying for her also, just to have people reappreciate older material of hers, like Bloody Mary, Judas, and even something unreleased from around then, like Brooklyn Nights. People have asked for Art Pop Act 2, which sadly never got to happen due to all the chaos. People talk about how overhated and underrated that album was, and Born This Way is always in the conversation for top 3 Gaga albums in this household. She has seen and felt the love around her, and she has reaped the rewards of all the hard work and darkness she went through on her way to the top. Post-Chromatica, I think Gaga has reached and solidified a level of stardom and vindication in her craft that should hopefully give her more confidence in her artistic instinct and help potentially wash away all of the bad of before and unleash yet another monster smash of a Gaga album. Not so much in terms of charts, although that would be nice, but in terms of the music, the sound, the lyrics. What will Gaga sing about and sound like on her 7th album? Who is Gaga on her 7th album? What is she going to be expressing? What is this album bringing in? What is it closing out?
I want to know, what did Chromatica do for you? What was the impact that this era and this tour had on you?
You know, I think that something that I feel pretty strongly about is that this album and this tour were a ending and a beginning at the same time. So it really was closing a very long period in my career that I needed to say goodbye to, like old stories, old wounds, fears, things that were just challenging and hard to overcome. And then going on tour with all of my friends and making this art was just like a total resurgence for me and a sense of liberation. And You know, the tour was actually completely different than the art for the album. It was very different, and I think that was because I was in a very different headspace, and I'm just super grateful to the fans because they always make a ton of space for me to be as imaginative as I want to be and interpret things in different ways. So
Now, only a couple of weeks away from Joker Folia Do's release, she has begun to tease a little some else. These images were posted to her Instagram, drumming up much hype and curiosity about what this could be for. Is it Joker 2 related? Is it LG7? Some disappointing secret third option? I personally think that it is LG7 related, but I wouldn't be too shocked if it was actually an original song for the Joker soundtrack. You guys, I'm editing, and the news moves fast, let me tell you. Because already Miss Gaga was posting billboards about LG 6.5 yesterday, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to add that into the video that I recorded already, you know? And what do I... As I'm looking for pictures to put in for that section of the video, what do I see? She announced Harlequin, which is a companion album to Joker 2, and it's coming out in 3 days! I'm crying. I'm gonna cry, dude. You hear that?